So
Anyway,
most of the matches do
guys,
turn out.
we should get on with our interview. I'm very
Yep.
Yes.
interested to the audience who may watch this. I'm very interested in hearing John Stroud's idea. This is Sudiip Mathur, on talking about AI. So he'll be sort of an AI specialist in this. But John's got an idea of matching people better. He said, have you met people sometimes you thought really clever, gifted, educated, and so on, and they're out of work, and you thought it's a real tragedy because they're so capable, and there's got to be some work for them. So John's got some idea that I don't know much about, and I thought I'd interview him and ask him generally what he was doing. This is sort of a casual discussion rather than a formal interview or anything, but we thought we'd bring Sudiip in because AI is very good at matching things, recognizing patterns and so on, and matching to suitable circumstances that would satisfy them. And last night I was talking to Kaz Piet as well, and she's talking about a psychological thing. So, Sudiip, in a way, you're the man of the moment too, not just John, as well. So, be
Sure,
very.
I'm happy to contribute the way I can.
So
Let me turn on the light. I think there's a problem
Yeah.
with light.
It's
In the room.
okay. It's going to be very interesting seeing how AI might apply to this. I didn't want AI to dominate it, John. It's really your idea.
No.
But
Please. I'm happy to have the conversation.
So let's hear from you, John. And Sudiip, if you want to butt in with a question now and again as well, I'll keep quiet, but as I can. But I'm very interested to hear, John, your idea. So away you go. Tell the audience, tell people what your idea is.
Well, it's really there's a couple of ideas that I've had, but so there's one that you mentioned, and one that I've been working on more recently is building off some of the research that Peter has shared on the platform.
Yeah.
Around the question of who and not how. So when a problem arises, people think, how am I going to solve this problem?
Yeah.
And there's one of the videos in the community is around, instead of thinking how you're going to solve the problem, think who.
Right.
And then, so that's step number one. Because once you get into a question of, well, who it is, then if you can imagine that person, so like if you and I can think of Sudiip to solve it, then we get out of the weeds and we just think, well, here's a person that we can rely on.
Yeah.
But increasingly, instead of going to a person, you could go to an AI as a service. So your AI could be the who that you turn to. And so that's what got me intrigued. And so what I've been wondering is, like, this world is changing so quickly. Is there a way to match, say, an entrepreneur with all of these who's out there that are AIs? Because just knowing that there's 1,000 choices out there is a little bit daunting. How could you find the best one? So that's the core of the idea.
Yeah, I think so. A couple of things from my experience is that last year there were about 10,000 companies claiming to provide AI solution. That is end of 2019, and out of that, more than 2,000 were the registered ones in the UK itself.
Okay.
So we're looking at a landscape of stuff where there are loads and loads of people claiming to solve a problem. It's much like, an Android marketplace or an iOS marketplace where you have solutions for everything. Unfortunately, there is no central marketplace which exists at this point of time. There are a few people who have tried to do it, and quite unsuccessfully, because to reach out to each one of them is impossible. And each of these companies are at various different stages of evolution. There is no one perfect solution that is matching it. And secondly, the trust factor. And this is where, when you download an app, you have something that you expect it to do, whether it's a game, whether it's an application, you know exactly what the input's going to be and what the output's going to come out. The AI works differently. AI is like, I mean, I think I've discussed this with you, Bruce, but if you have A and B as inputs and C as an output, in the traditional world, you would say A plus B is equal to C, and we as experts were able to define that function plus, and so the inputs and outputs were clear and measurable. Unfortunately, or the way the whole neural networks and deep learning has evolved, it is basically you have a set of variables A and B, and you have an outcome C, but you don't know what is the relationship between A and B. And what you're expecting the AI to do is to find that relationship. Now, the outcome C could be influenced not just by A and B, there could be variables A to Z, which could be influencing that particular thing. So, if you are not capturing the right set of variables to get to the outcome C, then you may be introducing a bias based upon your understanding. And that is where the whole problem begins. And therefore, people are not able to trust what AI is giving an answer to. And therefore, the enterprise level adoption of a lot of these things. There are AI which are being used, but if you look at the enterprise level adoption, it's not there. And particularly not there because people are not confident that if an outcome has been given or if based upon some pattern recognition, this is the response which has been given,
Yeah.
then am I sure that have I covered everything?
Right.
Will it cover all the scenarios? So that is where the challenge is, and therefore, even though there are marketplaces, people are not going to the marketplaces because they are not sure whether they can do it. The
Well,
second thing,
see,
yeah,
in the case of John's situation, it doesn't have to be an exact match. What you're trying to do is find maybe 5 candidates for a situation, I suppose. I mean, in some cases in corporate uses, you would want an exact correct answer, and the AI may fail because it misunderstands the question or it can't find them, whatever. But I think maybe in John's case, you'd be happy if you were given 10 people you could scrutinise out of 1,000,
absolutely.
and so it's a little
No, I
less
agree.
demanding. Yeah.
I agree. I agree, Bruce. And what I feel is that again, when you look at the kind of solutions that we're talking about, they are very big, chunky solutions. You know, when you are talking about fraud detection, let's say in a banking situation,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're talking about a problem which is, you know, churn prediction, these are chunky problems. It's not something which is a small problem which a person can get his head around simply. Churn can be impacted by variety of things, including your product relevance, your customer touch points.
Yeah.
It could be dependent upon so many
Yeah.
variables,
Yeah.
and if you not consider all the variables correctly, even though somebody can say I'm giving you a churn prediction
Yeah.
or I can predict churn for you, you are not confident that this is the right thing which will work or not. And they will be like, and everybody's offering everything. So if you look at the companies, they will give you a plethora of options. So AI companies, there are very few who are offering a very niche solution saying, I will solve only one problem for you, which is to read your documents, and do an NLP on it. Nobody's offering that. They will give you breadth of services. So that becomes like a catalog. So you have to not just look at one service that they're offering, but they're looking at there's a lot of static in the background. I'm not sure.
Yeah. John, can you hear poor quality sound? Sudeep, your sound quality is very poor to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
I've got a very strong static somewhere coming from somewhere.
yeah. I'm hearing some too. I'm not sure what Bruce, you're okay for me.
Yeah, and you're clear as a bell to me. It's just Sudeep, I think.
Okay.
I muted myself,
Okay, that's good.
so
That's good now. I can hear you now.
Yeah.
We can,
yeah, there was something
okay,
wrong in
okay.
that communication.
Anyway,
Yeah.
John, what do you think so far? I mean, what are your comments so far about this?
Well, I'm wondering is I take the points that people have the hesitation that if they can't understand the relationship, then there's a hesitancy about wanting to sign on to the process. But I wonder if there certain areas, like take a marketing example, where the objective is you want to increase the percentage of your emails that are opened by existing clients. So you're a bank, and you want to persuade them to adopt another financial service of insurance or something like that.
Okay.
So you send them the email, and you know what your base rate is right now on emails that are opened, and then the pitch of these companies is that by using your data and applying our machine learning technique, we'll be able to increase the quality of your submissions, so that we'll pick the
Better
right
uptake.
subject.
Yeah, so you get a better
So
uptake.
your uptake improves by 30, 40, 50%.
Okay.
Yeah. So that you've got a tight business case there. Hire this as a service. You spend $1 on us, and we generate $3 more.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how's that tying to you, Don? How's that trying? I understand that, but how does that tie to you?
Oh, how's that tied to me?
Yeah, to your proposal about employment and job uptake.
So, okay, so for me, it's like I'm thinking is there a business to be created in terms of matching companies who need that service with the services themselves?
Give an example.
Okay, so it's a company that is trying to expand its business, and it has a sense of, like, I know we should be doing something to improve our sales, and they don't quite know what it is. If there's a company that says, are you aware that instead of hiring another marketing person, you are able to hire an AI, and let me provide a list of 3 or 4 companies that you could be contracting with, and
Okay.
you pick the best one.
Okay.
So it's providing an objective
Yeah.
assessment on what the options are.
Yeah.
Save
So, I
them
mean,
time.
I think IBM Watson already claims to do that, Sudeep, doesn't it? And you can too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes. So I think understanding the business context is very important in terms of trying to solve the problem. There are the way we look at it is, there is a B2C problem and there's a B2B problem.
Okay.
If you are a customer trying to, read a document which is scanned from the computer, there are enough and more services you can go for doing an OCR, and it will solve that problem left, right, and center for you. That's not a problem at all. But if that OCR for you is just a piece of the problem, if you want to do more things with that particular document, if you're reading, let's say you want to create a thesis out of the research that is being done, on a particular topic. Now you want to read your computer to read thousands of documents, do a natural language generation and natural language processing on the data that it has read, come up with a synopsis of each of these books, and come back to you as a solution saying, this is what it is, this is what the outcome that I have found, these are the books that, it's a kind of a summary of the thesis that a human being would create.
Yeah, it's beyond optical character recognition, OCR, and it's into intelligent summary of that in meaningful terms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is where the value gets unlocked. The OCR does unlock the value to a certain extent. It's not that OCR will not unlock the value, but the value to you is when that research is completely done and handed over to you, so that what would take you a month to read, you can do it in a day with the reliability factor of 90% or more, saying that.
Yeah. So okay. So it's giving you an useful executive summary of a lot of data that way. But if coming back, John, to your idea, I've been dabbling a little bit in current AI in IBM Watson, and from what I've seen of the text and analysis, which you can have a look on the IBM Watson site, it will go through material and give you sentiment, for example, and that's expressly what they're talking about. I'm tempted to screen share with you right now, but it's in their tech stuff. So I think that's possible now. How good it is, I don't know, but I think it's useful. I,
It is the sentiment analysis, and a lot of companies are actually using sentiment analysis from the Twitter feed or the Facebook comments or Instagram feed of the
yeah,
of the people as well.
yeah,
So there are a few applications, not just in documentation, but also in the live streaming data which is coming through,
okay,
which is giving the company an indication of how a promotion that has been put forth or any kind of
yeah,
announcement that is happening with the company, how
yeah.
is it impacting the
Right.
perception
I
of the
mean,
company
yeah,
in
yeah.
that.
One of the things it did say, John, was favourable or not favourable. It was saying, it was giving a probability of sentiments and also of favour or disfavour. So that's already available from IBM Watson and possibly others as well. I mean, Sudeep's company.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
Right.
that's something that is available. Google has TensorFlow, which basically open source tool, which allows you to do these sentiment analysis.
Yeah.
So that's not a problem.
Yeah, for people that aren't familiar with AI, there's a thing called a corpus, and it's a ready-made chunk of information which the AI knows about and it can refer to. And I think they have got corpora, that's the plural of corpus, they've got those ready-made for this kind of analysis. For customer face recognition, saying that person looks happy with what they're looking at, that pair of shoes, they like the look of those shoes, or they don't like the look of those shoes. So they've got corpora for that kind of stuff. So you're on the right track, John, in that way. I thought you were talking about employment, but I think you were talking about employing AIs.
Yeah. And in an earlier post, I did talk about a different idea
Okay.
that was more around employment. That
Okay.
was so I can explain that in a second. But so just to be on the sentiment analysis, like I know that companies have used that around things like sort of brand awareness. So Nike does a commercial, it's controversial, and then they want to know, has this improved or worsened our um, our assessment by customers? And so that type of sentiment analysis would apply there, right?
Yeah.
But are you saying that, suppose you were an executive at a company and you wanted to get a sense of what are the firms out there that provide AI service to me for marketing, will IBM Watson help with that?
I don't know yet. The only thing
Okay.
near to that I've heard of is a
Okay.
cryptocurrency token. I think it's called AI Net,
Okay.
and there's a couple of beautiful cryptocurrency tokens. I don't know whether they're successful or not, but one of them was to have a big community of AI people who are developing and sharing. It was AI Net, something like that. So everybody knew everybody else, and they say, I do this, do you do that? Could we cooperate on that? And we can offer service that way. But and maybe in that there is an index
Okay.
of who does what. Maybe.
Okay.
So what I'm aware of is that there are certain companies who have created marketplaces, which basically have the capabilities that you can utilize to do it. So
Okay.
if you have a product, you can actually put it on a marketplace, and that marketplace you would be able to. So people who would. The problem with that, these marketplaces are not popular. These are not something. So when you are actually reaching out, so when let me just take you through a journey of a typical company who wants to go for an
Uh-huh.
AI kind of application. So today you are the CEO of the company and you decide that I want to do some AI. You know, the first thing that you do is you hire somebody to say, you know, you tell me a little bit more about AI. I will not go to a vendor straight away or
Right.
hire
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
CIO or chief data
Yeah.
officer or data scientist would basically look at, okay, and then what they would basically look at is assess you to say how ready our company is for the AI perspective. If the company is sizable enough, they will be approached by a lot of vendors of the likes of Accenture and IBMs of the world who are pitching to them and saying, AI can do wonders for you. We can do this for you. We can do that for you. Give us all your data. And again, this becomes a kind of a data land grab first, because the first thing they'll come and tell you is that your data is not in the right place.
Okay.
If you really want to utilize your data or you want to utilize a service, which is correct. I'm not disputing the fact that garbage in is garbage out. So if you
Uh-huh.
do not get the right data in, you are not likely to get the right results out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, emphasis goes out in saying that get your data strategy right, get your big data right, and therefore the next 2 years of a company go only that getting the data correct.
Yeah.
And that's where the execs lose their patience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're basically saying, I'm judged on a quarter to quarter basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have 2 years
Yeah.
to get my data
Yeah.
in place, and then you start
Yeah.
delivering me the benefits. I'll be out of job by then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what they do is they basically go to these accelerators and
Okay.
say, I have a problem. Do you have a startup which can solve the problem for me? And the startup would go there and say, we want a limited set of data, but we'll take your data, we'll clean it and do it, but we'll solve this one niche problem for you. We have got a tool that's already doing it for you. When they go to that particular company, the challenge that happens is that, okay, let's do a POC because I'm not ready to take your tool in straight away
To do a
because
what? Sorry.
Proof of concept.
for
Proof of concept. Thank you.
a proof of concept
Yeah.
because unless you demonstrate to me, I cannot take it into my live system because
Sure.
it would be too much of a risk. And these companies, sometimes they're funded, sometimes they're not. They invest their time and money into building that POC. Once that POC is built, that's when they come and say, we want to industrialize it.
Uh-huh.
We want to take it into it.
Yeah.
Can you give us so I have operations in 50 countries. It needs to be supported in 20 different languages.
Yeah.
It needs to be available at so much time.
Yeah.
So can you provide me the resources to actually do it? Now most of these startups are 2, 3, 5, 50 member teams.
Yeah.
If you ask 10 members to support one client,
Yeah.
that startup fails to exist.
Yeah.
It cannot scale because and each client comes with a little bit of different flavor. So HSBC would be different from a Deutsche Bank to a different to a Lloyds Bank to a different. It's not going to be the same problem they're looking to solve. So what you build for HSBC cannot be ported in, picked up, and ported into, even though they are operating in the same market. So therefore, you need a support team, and that is where the scalability fails. So you find the companies have done POCs, but they're not able to industrialize it.
Right.
That's when the cycle becomes is that you again are approached by the consulting company. The two consulting companies, in each region there are different people. There are a lot of Indian companies, a lot of Israeli companies who basically come and say, or East European companies who will say, we'll industrialize it for you. Now they don't know the product. They may know your landscape because they've been working with you, but they do not know the product. The product company does not trust these SIs, and the price that these SIs put together does not make sense in this
Right.
way.
Right.
And therefore, what we're finding is that a lot of it is sitting in a POC. A lot of companies have done a lot of POCs, but unless you're starting a company, unless you've done, unless you are starting a company, with the AI yourself as a central theme, then only then you will be able to scale. Otherwise, you are stuck at your level. And that is the kind of a journey that. Therefore, understanding the client problem. Sometimes clients have a very, very vague problem. They do not have any kind of specification of what is the point that. And that is where the consulting company, we offer a strategy consulting first, followed it by what the AI would basically bring it in. So if you are saying, I'll give you an example of the problem that we recently solved.
So, and now is this a problem that you guys are like the type of problem that your company works on?
Yeah, we solved. I'll give you an example of that. So we were approached by an insurance company, a car insurance company, and they were actually maintaining a fleet of 100 cars as courtesy cars. 100 cars that were only kept as courtesy cars because 20% of their, the subscribers had that clause that if their car met with an accident, they needed to actually be provided a courtesy car, and the average duration of a courtesy car was about 3 weeks time.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked at that problem, and they wanted us to reduce that number of cars. Now, when we looked at the problem was not that they had many more cars. The problem was that they needed to do it because they had a 3 week lead time to solve that problem.
That's to
If you
get
have,
that's the insurance processing took 3 weeks, and that's why they had to have those courtesy cars. And Genisys Robotics, it's your company name,
yeah,
was asked to try and cut that time down. And in many
yeah,
cases, to cut a long story short, they cut the time from 3 weeks down to a few hours. So you didn't
Oh,
even
so you've
need.
heard the story.
Yeah, I've heard it before. Sudeep and I talked about it in an AI
yeah.
interview.
Yeah.
So you can see there it's a very
Yeah.
successful
Okay.
way of using AI to solve an insurance problem.
Yeah.
The
The
system.
challenge, yeah.
Go ahead.
I think Bruce, the problem that I was pointing out is that the problem statement itself, if we were going only after reducing the number of cars, if you were saying how can I reduce my number of cars,
The
you would
fleet,
probably
the
be
fleet
talking about,
size. So
yeah, your courtesy cars.
yeah,
You'd probably be plotting it out. You would be probably sorting it out from the point of view of where do I strategically place the car so that I need
yeah,
lesser
right,
number
right,
of.
right. Yeah,
So the oftentimes the problem in when you're trying to
Uh,
solve it is not the problem statement which has been given out, and you
mm,
have to do a bit
yeah,
of analysis to
yeah,
find out what is
yeah,
the root cause,
yeah. Right,
and
right.
that is where a gap currently is, because the point solutions that are being offered in the market do not do that.
Yeah,
They are, you take it like, for example, your customer churn. A lot of companies are giving you a customer churn or a prediction of your success of your marketing campaign
yeah.
or group. There is, they are trying to solve a template problem, but your
right,
problem could
right.
be
Something else.
completely different.
Can I just interrupt for
Mm,
a second, John? Just to brief you on this, what Genesis Robotics did was they got in an AI that could recognize from photographs given by the car, the person, the driver of the car, would take 8 photographs of the car. The AI would do visual recognition of the car to see where the damage was. It would recognize the car, make, model, and year, and the part number. It would recognize the part pretty accurately using corpora that exist. I don't
uh-huh.
know. You didn't build those corpora, right?
No,
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 they
no.
were available from IBM or somewhere. But anyway, it would then say, okay, that is a Toyota Corolla 2010, and it's the right front fender, and to replace that's going to typically cost X dollars, and the person would say, great, thanks, and they could immediately go and get it done. Sometimes it didn't. I think you said they didn't even need to have a courtesy car at all.
Yes, because if you were able to get that, so there's a lead time because there was a surveyor in the middle who had to be scheduled in to go and do that
Right.
survey,
Anyway,
and
so
that,
you can see how that
yeah,
cut
Yeah.
down, that drastically cut down the cost. You didn't have to have a whole lot of a whole lot of courtesy cars. You could cut the time down. So that was a very good use of AI. It also, his system would look at the paperwork and recognize fields within, like that is the name of the person, that is their residential address. It did all that processing that the office used to do. The AI would say, yeah, I can see what's going on there, and you say, this is a clear case, this person hasn't got a bad history, so we can approve it just right now. So within 3 hours or 5 hours, the person says, what do you mean, you got this done now, instead of
yeah,
3 weeks. And so it saved the company on the courtesy car. It saved on all the processing, saved on the staffing of that sort of
yeah.
thing. So that's what AI was doing. Visual recognition and text recognition of forms, that's what it was doing.
But at Sudeep's point, I think so. I take all of
Yeah.
those points, and I think in addition, what Sudeep is saying is that to solve that problem required some analysis up front to figure out what's the
Yeah.
problem that you're solving for. So if you ask me to solve for efficient allocation of cars, I can do that, but that was the wrong problem.
Right.
It
Yeah.
was actually a different problem.
Right.
Absolutely, and
And now
that yeah,
that's not what the AI did. That's what you and your team did.
absolutely, and that is where somewhere, and we are not yet there in terms of building that AI which can do that analysis for
Yeah.
you. What we lead with that, we try to understand the problem first. If you start with the problem, and one of the other things that we felt, in one of the cases we went against Accenture, straight up.
Uh,
Again, and we came up cheaper, much cheaper, because Accenture was doing everything from scratch. So because their thing is they will build it up from the ground zero,
Uh-huh.
because their model is the more number of resources that they can put in, the longer the project that is, the bigger the project it is, they make money on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were not talking about using a point solution to solve the problem. They had the equity with the client, but uh, the kind of size at which a simple problem like a ticket classification problem was a 1 year problem, 1 year solution
Okay.
that they had provided, and the cost were like 3 times what we were putting in for them.
Okay,
And
so yeah, pardon. I hope the audience doesn't think this is a promo video for um, your
for me,
company,
Genisys Robotics is
but
not, it's
but
not, it's just,
but I am impressed by the business analysis that you're talking about here. That is very high level. That is very human at level. You're right that it'll be a while before an AI can have the wisdom to look at the whole company and see the subtle signals that detect where the real problem is. Is this making sense, John? Can
Oh, it
you
is.
can you talk about what your thoughts and feelings are now about this?
Yeah, this has helped clarify some of my thoughts, and now I can ask better questions. But I liked how Sudeep put it in terms of it was around the churn issue
yeah,
that solutions get presented as template problems.
yes,
And I would think that for executives, that becomes an attractive pitch. So whether it's the best pitch or not, but I can see how executives would say, I've got a churn problem, and here's a company that comes in and it fits in a sweet spot between the two examples you gave.
yeah,
I don't want to get into Accenture and 2 years in building this out and pulling our hair out, because we just don't have the timeline. And I don't want to go with someone from an accelerator, and they're just too small and they're not going to be able to fit. But something in between, an established company that says, you've got a churn problem and I've got a churn solution, that they'll take care of the wrangling of the data. They'll have a pre-existing process that you supply your data to, and it seems like an attractive pitch of we'll take your data, use our machine learning, and we'll come back with something that reduces your churn by 20%. That's a compelling pitch, isn't it?
Well,
yes.
see, to some degree, there is a little bit of truth in it, in that there are corpora out there. I don't know how many there are. Sudeep, you would know way better than me. I mean, there's chunks of stuff to do with insurance, to do with policing, to do with medical. There'll be, I don't know yet. I'd love to have a library or an index, a classified index of corpora available for particular tasks, because that'd be a good place to start. I'm a beginner here. Now, Sudi, can you just tell me how many corpora do you know of, and do you know of an indexed house, a clearinghouse of corpora?
So again, as I said, you could actually start with one ecosystem like Amazon, and you can go to the AWS marketplace itself. There are vendors who operate only on AWS, and they will be able to give you solutions built on AWS. A similar thing you will find on Azure. Similar
Hang
thing
on,
you will find on
what is AWS?
Amazon Web Services.
Okay.
So Amazon Web Services, they have a suite of machine learning tools, and they have a partner network who build solutions on AWS itself.
So now hang on. So you're talking about ready-made corpora, chunks of information in specialized areas that an
Yeah,
AI can then dive into and use when it's trying to solve a problem in that field.
no, I'm talking about people or companies who have built their entire solution
Okay.
using the
Okay.
capabilities
Okay.
offered by Amazon Web Services.
Okay. Yeah.
Similarly, there would be companies who are offering a complete solution which is built on Microsoft Azure or on Google platform. And these marketplaces exist. You can
Yeah.
actually go down and search for them, and you will
Yeah.
probably be able to find companies that solve most of the common problems. How good they are how bad they are, what there is no quality control or quality check that any of these are offering.
But what we need then, Sudeep, is we need a community of people who are comparing ideas. Like, if you imagine, just say you had a Facebook page on users of AI, beginner users of AI, and maybe some experts in there as well, and you say, oh, I've been trying to do this, I'm a shoe manufacturer, and I want a thing that'll see how long shoes last, and there's a corporate here, and there's a bunch of people, what do you think, guys? And then somebody says, yeah, I used them last week and they were great, or no, they were terrible. We need a community of users and specialists all there together, so you can toss a question out there straight away. This is wisdom of the crowd, just like John's talking
I
about.
agree.
Yeah. We
I
need a Yelp for AWS.
Yeah.
The only thing that this is something which is my pitch as well.
Yeah.
Maybe that or not, but the language these two people are talking. So as a company, you want to solve a business problem,
Yeah. Yeah.
and a problem with the people who are solving a problem, they are talking technological language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They will talk about a recurrent neural network or an naive Bayes, or you might talk about any of those kind of wizardy sounding names of
Yeah.
what AI can do for
Yeah.
you,
Right.
without really looking at what is the problem that is being
Yeah.
solved. So
Yeah.
on one side, you're asking a business problem, and
Yeah.
on the solution
Yeah.
side, you have technologists
Yeah.
who are talking about,
Right.
we have this technology which can solve this problem.
Yeah.
And that interpretation factor is completely missing at this point of
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
If you go into Amazon Web Services, or if you go on to Google Web Services kind of a
Yeah.
thing, the more description you want to look at it, it is not telling you what are the business problem what we solved, what are the business parameters that were considered, what are the outcomes that came out, and how did it improve. It would talk a lot about what are the technology used,
Yeah.
what was the algorithms
Yeah.
that were used,
Right.
how did we scale it up,
Yeah.
what cloud was used,
Yeah.
and that is where the disconnect is.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, you're saying that Genisys Robotics effectively is a business analyst that looks at
Yes.
the company and says, here's where there's a lot of loss happening, or there's a lot of gain to be had. Now we can suggest some tools and some people, but we need to look at what you're doing, where the money's being lost, or where the money can be made, or where the perceptions can be gained, and then let's look at some tools.
Absolutely, the tools are the even when we humans try to solve a problem. If you want to build a boat, you don't start with the tools first. I want to build a
Yeah.
boat.
Right.
You need to understand the purpose of that particular
Yeah.
boat. Whether you
Yeah.
want a whole ship or whether you want a raft, which will take you from point A to point B. So if you start looking for a boat building tool, you will find somebody who can actually sell you
All
a shipbuilding thing,
Yeah, okay,
and
okay.
somebody who can sell you.
All right,
So therefore, the objective needs to be absolutely clear.
Yeah, okay. Well, to continue that analogy, John would want to go to a place where, if he wanted to build a boat, he'd want to talk to some business analysts and designers of boats. But in the same room, there could be somebody that builds automated factories. So, or architects. You'd need to have your different business analysts for different particular purposes. I mean, I'm trying to figure out where you go. You said Amazon AWS would be one way to go there. The dream to me would be something equivalent to a Facebook group where you could toss out a question saying, I've got a boat building enterprise and I think we're losing too much money in the examination of in the matching of the customer to their use and our boats.
Yeah.
Who can help me? And then Sudeep says, we don't deal in that, but we could. And then somebody else over here called, GRI Innovation, they say, yeah, we've been doing boats for, quite a while, so come and talk to us. It's really, the two things that I'm thinking of, I'll shut up in a minute because I'm talking too much, but the two things that haunt me, one is, I think it's called AI Net, and another one I think it's called Singularity.net, and they are both cryptocurrency operations which are connected with people who want to provide a resource base, a generalized resource base for sharing of AI tools and ideas and people and business analysts and something, so that everybody's together, there's not duplication of effort, and there's a wide variety, and if you go there you can find the kind of people you need.
Yes, Bruce, and then that is where that and that is precisely the place where you have, if you look at a job board, I'll give you an example. I'll just come to my reason. When you look for AI jobs, look for AI jobs, in the marketplace. There will be a data scientist, there will be a data engineer,
Yeah.
there are only professional coders who are actually being asked for. You are not asking for actually an AI business analyst.
Right,
At the same
right,
time,
right.
there
Totally.
are no roles in the market.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Why? Because everybody believes that a business analyst is not really the person
Yeah,
who is
yeah.
going to be solving the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, I
The
understand.
business solve the
Yeah, yeah,
problem
yeah.
there.
Yeah. That
And
you,
that is the gap that
yeah.
is existing in the
Yeah.
market. Maybe
Yeah.
a good idea,
Yeah.
if you are looking at an
Yeah.
opportunity, is to groom a set of people
Yeah.
who are who can bridge this gap to
Yeah.
your community, where you're saying, Ruth, that people
Yeah.
ask the question.
Yeah, yeah.
You can groom the
Yeah.
question
Yeah.
before that can be actually put into the
Yeah.
people who are actually solving the
Yeah.
problem.
I think, Sudeep, you have made that point extremely well, and I understand it much better, and probably John does too.
Yeah.
What I'm curious about, dare I say, is I'm impatient, and I'm not a big corporation. I want to see at the small end of AI, in the playful, cheap, or free end of AI, what can be done with those tools that we said, oh, you've got to have a business analyst before you can use the tools. I want to pick up a hammer and a nail and bang it into a piece of wood to see what happens and think what I could do with that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I highly respect the BA for corporate. It's so valuable. That's really important. But I'm also very curious as a beginner. I'm very curious about small scale stuff. Like I used to build expert systems in the 90s, and that some of them very small. Like a nurse came around one evening, and she said, she worked in a hospital, and she said, people make mistakes in disposing of the waste. And I said, how many categories? She said, there's an orange bin, there's a blue bin, there's a green bin. They've got to know which one they put it in. So I built an expert system in an evening, just a few hours. She's saying, if it's this, if it's that, then it's got to go there. And we, in a few minutes, or hours anyway, we had a little expert system that reliably said to a person, it asked them the questions about that piece of waste or that tool or what has been thrown out, where it should go, and it would tell it where to put it. Now that's a very small example of AI in a practical sense, and I'm curious about the small end. Can you, Sudeep, or John, if you like, comment on that?
You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So when you look at, let's put it this way. There are enough companies which are offering cloud-based services, who are basically saying, if you do a Google search for a problem, there will be enough and more companies who will come up and say, turn up and say, subscribe to our solution. We'll give you a 14-day trial, and you can actually do it. It's on cloud. It's free of cost for you to try and use that particular thing.
Okay.
The two distinct challenges why you as an individual can actually take it, and most of the people who are actually implementing AI for themselves, or a small business who are doing it, they are currently using it.
Are they happy with what they're getting from it?
That again, that is where the problem is. If you don't ask the right question, if you're asking the wrong question, you're not getting the right. You cannot get the right answer.
True enough, but
again,
do they feel happy with, even though they may be not doing it efficiently, are they getting enough benefit to say, wow, this is a good tool, and they say, tomorrow I'm going to talk to Sudeep to have a look at our whole enterprise, because I think we're not really answering the questions. They may be smart enough to say, hey, we need a business analyst now. We can see the power of this tool, but I don't think we're really using it. I'm going to call Sudeep, and he will, and his corporation, they will help us do that.
Things like automation tools. Let me put automation tools in the mix as well, rather than just the AI tools. So automation tools, Mailchimp, it's a very, very popular one, or a CRM tool like Zoho. It does a lot of automation for you, and people get subscribed to these tools straight off the bat. You do not need any kind of and you can trial it. If you don't like it, you can move your data. You're not exporting. The moment you commit with all your data to a particular tool, that is where you get stuck with it. And if company and if
Yeah.
that company does not have the feet to
Yeah.
stand on its own,
Yeah.
and you are only a subscriber, you are not paying them enough to actually be let's say be viable on its own. So if
Yeah.
you are paying $200,
Yeah.
let's say you are paying $200 a month for a particular service, they need at least 50 or 60 of those such clients to be actually fundamentally viable, whereby they will be able to keep the cloud services on. So unless they have a customer base, you are really not sure whether you want to continue with them or whether you will be only be dabbling with them.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that is where, and if your problem is a bit unique, then you are stuck in that. If your
Okay.
problem is generic, then there are enough and more. Then the confusion is there's a problem of plenty. There are too many people who are asking for the same thing,
Yeah.
and that's where I think, John, your idea of having a catalog or an AI which can actually build a catalog and suggest some of those things could be a very useful thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm still curious because I'm a beginner. Even though I was
Yeah.
working in AI, you know, getting a BA in. I've dealt a lot with BAs when I was a technical writer, so
Okay.
that I know that. But what I'm trying to talk to the audience here, if there's anyone still watching, um, is what can be
Right.
done to play with little things, even not in series. You take a chunk of your data out, and in the evening, not even at work, you take some of the data, get
Yeah.
permission from the boss, take some data home, like a few megabytes of data, and say, I want to play with this thing and get to understand how it goes and what it can do. I'm because it's a big reach up to go to a business analyst and employ a business analyst to look at your whole
Right.
corporation.
And on that, I'm not a technical person, and I wouldn't have the skills to be able to do that. I mean, even if my boss gave me data, I would be limited. I wouldn't know what to do with it, right?
Yeah.
So, in terms of like what's available for people who are don't have a big budget, uh, AI as a service, it's starting to morph into. It seems like there's two bookends around this. There's stuff for like the big corporations, like how to fix your churn and so forth, and that's projects that are $500,000 and above. Or there's a lot of smaller ones that it's maybe $10 a month or something, and you do it on a subscription. So one that I've signed up for is called Beautiful AI, which is a substitute for PowerPoint. So if you're trying to design something,
Yeah.
then the AI is built right into the system. Another one for designers is called Canva, Canva.
Yeah.
So there's these different niches where designers can like increase their capability at work. So instead of sending it out to a designer to get this prepared for you, is you work with a tool that has the AI built in for a templated function like Sudeep was talking about. Or another field is in HR, where you're an HR analyst and you'd like to be using AI. You can record videos, record interviews with potential candidates, and the AI can, they claim, help you choose the candidate that best meets your requirements and help you increase the diversity of the candidates that you're looking at.
Now, by the way,
And
quickly, how has it judged? How has it perceived the candidates by visual recognition of their faces and gestures, or what, or the
I
length?
think that's part of it. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So, and
Now
so
we're just about out of time, guys.
sure, sure, sure.
One thing I'd like, I don't know whether you'd like it, but I'd love it if we had another session where we specifically focused on these kinds of tools that you've just started to talk about, John.
I'm
Because I
be
think
happy.
my guess is the audience now is itching to see what they might play with to get the
Okay.
drift. Sudi,
Yes.
Sure.
are you interested in doing that? Or is that
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been using Canva quite effectively,
okay?
Okay.
All right, good.
and kind of breadth of users that I have from Canva, I
All
did
right,
not even know that when
all
I
right,
started off.
all
So
right.
it's a good use case to talk
All right,
about it.
so we will off air we will talk about we will discuss having another session like this where we will
Sure.
try to bring to the table a bunch of tools that the audience can play with themselves with a chunk of data. We can even point to some data they could play with maybe, but I think a lot of people are itching to get into AI, but they think, oh, it's complicated and you've got to be
Yeah.
a programmer or you've got to be a business analyst. Like the little example I gave about an expert system in Exis that I made with that nurse, that was visible. Anyone looking over our shoulder that evening, they would understand that is so good. There's so many little decision trees that are complicated, like choosing a video camera.
Right.
And you just get question, 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 bang, that's the best video camera for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And same thing if we can get the similar thing, something very modest and simple, just starter stuff. And ideally, by the way, it would be stuff to say, not only have I played with this and seen it as a toy and so on, I could use that tomorrow in my workshop.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah,
so
I'm using them.
Yeah, exactly. So let's have a session like that. If you're agreeable, especially Sue, I hope it isn't too low level for you. But I'd have to say that if people see that stuff, of course, there will be corporate people like Jim. You know,
The only point that I'll make over here before we go is that the, 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 the new AI, or the whole AI, or the neural network based AI, or the deep learning kind of a thing, or machine learning, which is what is driving AI, is fundamentally different from the expert system side of it, and we
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah,
discuss
yeah,
off
yeah, yeah, sure,
one.
sure, sure, yeah, yeah,
Therefore, and that's where we
yeah,
probably need to have a discussion around that part as well.
yeah,
Expert system driven tools are available in the marketplace today, which can solve very effectively your problem. It's
yeah,
the other side of the table
yeah.
is where the challenge is, and that's where you need more guidance.
Yeah, that's right. I fully agree. I just want to say, I was going to say, Sudeep, although you'd be doing us a favour by telling us what you know and covering a bunch of these things, I know from experience of life and business that Jim Croakley or someone who's been in big corporations say, "Wow, I didn't realise you could do that." Sudeep, call me tomorrow about I want two of your business analysts in there to do that. Never mind the small fry stuff. What I'm saying, the spin-off can be quite good for you if you're willing to put time in. But I'm just uneasy that it may not be so worthwhile for you to help us with this. That's all.
No, Bruce. It's always good time spent with you. I had some really intellectual discussions with you, so I'm happy to spend more time with you.
Thank you very much,
and
Sudeep.
this is out of my working hours, so this time works for me.
Good on you.
I can spend that time.
Lovely, and thank you,
It's
John.
the easiest.
Thank you, John, for
I really
bringing
appreciate
this.
you guys.
Yeah, we're beginners. John and I are sort of beginners in this, but I think there are a lot of people very keen on AI. It's perhaps the supreme technology. I think virtuality, in the broad sense, is the highest of all, and it includes AI as a virtualization of the human mind. But I think a lot of people will be eager to climb on the bus, the AI bus, and see where it can take us. So thank you very much, gentlemen, and we'll have another session. Bye for now.
Super.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a nice day.